okay. Go for it. We use EPD.
One of the first things that I noticed this week was talking about explicit instruction, and that being like direct instruction. And I guess what kind of stood out to me first about that is like, I guess when you think of like planning a lesson as a teacher, explicit instruction comes to mind first,
Right.
because we want to control everything, and explicit instruction is about controlled practice.
Mm-hmm.
Where you're directing their attention, where you're kind of like forcing the flow through a subject matter or something. And I guess that makes most sense when you're thinking as a teacher, because we have a hard time like kind of forking over the reins and letting the kids
take charge and teach. I don't want to say teach themselves, but I know what you.
We kind of like to control the outcome. Like we want to be like all goal related. Like here's the focus of this instruction, and this is what you're going to be able to do by the end, and this is how we're going to get there.
Right, and that's what I was reading a second ago, and a question in the book was which one works better, and it really just kind of said it depends on your students, but they both, each explicit and implicit, have the same ending goal, but it's just different ways of approaching it and getting to that goal.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, you have to know your students. I mean, we interviewed that teacher when we were doing our observations, and one of the first things that she said was, the hierarchy of needs. Until you've met the kids' needs, they're not going to learn.
Right.
So, I guess knowing, like, what they need and how they learn best kind of caters to which mode
one you follow
of instruction you're going to use. And I think we use them both pretty frequently.
Right,
you just pay more attention to explicit, because I feel like I plan a lot harder to do like explicit instruction activities.
Right.
Like if I'm going to be in control of it, I want it to be,
right,
smooth.
And like, I mean, for an example, like at the beginning of the year, I was implicit, whatever, first new teacher, I was going, have my kids be in small groups, move center to center, but then I got to know my kids more and realized I don't want to say they weren't capable of it, but it wasn't at their level. They couldn't, they really weren't learning anything doing that, so I had to change things. So like you said, it's just based on what they need and how they learn.
Well, it's different in you for first grade too, because like I can put my kids in centers in fourth grade, and I expect them to do exactly what's asked of them.
Right.
And even if it involves some sort of social learning, like I expect it to be done, but that's just the difference in a developmental level.
Right.
I think age is definitely one of the factors that impacts like which one you use too.
Definitely.
And I think all of that feeds into, we're going back to scaffolding. I think all that feeds back, like when you know your students' needs and you've planned your instruction, whether you're offering them a chance to learn like vicariously through implicit instruction or explicit instructions, like, hey, this is what you're going to learn today,
right?
Then you're still going to have to offer that scaffolding.
Yeah. See, when I think of like explicit, I think of like math or science. Because, like in math, we throw a problem out at them at the very beginning. And it's like, implicit, I'm sorry. Because, like, you throw it at them, let them figure it out. They have no idea what they're doing. But yet some of them get it, some of them don't. But then, same thing with science. You may do an experiment first. And, of course, they're going to love an experiment. So they don't care that they're really learning right then. But really, they're learning what's going on and what's coming, what's coming about and of that goal.
Well, I think that a lot of times we'll use implicit instruction, like opportunities for them to engage in some learning without an explanation first to set up the explicit instruction.
Right, yeah.
Like you it's like the 5 E's. Like you let the kids go try something, you let them they're going to start making mental notes of like what's going on and what they're seeing, and that sets them up for the explanation of it all. Hey, why can I scoot this water all across this wax paper?
Right.
What's going on with that? Why is it sticking to this stuff? Well, that's called cohesion, and this is what water's actually doing.
I think they just both relate hand in hand.
One of my questions that I came up with is like, what do we need to consider when planning those types of instructions?
That's the struggle sometimes. Of course, their needs, like you said.
I mean, I think that kicks back to the kids' needs.
Right. I feel honestly, that's what everything kicks back to.
Well, yeah, and I mean, like you said, you know the kids, like, what kids learn. Like, you've got different kids that you could go sit and they could learn in a social type setting without much structure, but then you've got kids that aren't going to learn unless you sit them down and tell them, look at my face. Okay, now
watch my mouth. Right.
We're learning this letter group today.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm thinking of plenty in my head right now.
Well, I mean, it's like that in every classroom. I've got kids that I could show 2 math problems on perimeter and I could turn them loose and they would be fine.
Right. Yeah.
And then I have kids that you can just work and work and work all day. And like until they do it with their own hand and talk about it and see it and have some time to drink it in a little bit, they don't get it. I think a large majority of our whole group instruction falls under explicit.
Yeah.
I mean, you do want to provide social opportunities and time for that incidental learning. But
sometimes it's just hard to put that in there. Time.
Well, yeah, you feel like you get off on a rabbit trail, as I call it sometimes. Like, I love when I'm teaching something and then my kids have questions about, like, something cross-curricular, and you're like, yes! And then you realize you're like,
but hold on.
It's 5 minutes till lunch.
Right.
What, do we really have time to go off on this one? I was looking at the strong versus weak interface positions. Let me go back. That was hard to explain without it in front of my face. Oh, come on. Basically what I got of it was like the strong interface positions and the weak interface positions were arguing about whether like explicit instruction causes implicit instruction or whether it's just one of the factors of implicit instruction.
Right.
And I think because it's so direct that sometimes you help those students make they jump those little gaps.
Right, yeah.
And they do internalize it a little bit, and it causes some implicit instruction. And then they want to turn and talk to their buddy about it, and then they get a little bit more, and all that input kind of gets in there and jumbles around until it makes sense.
It's true.
So I don't know which one of the interfaces I would really agree with. I get what they're both saying.
Right.
I feel
it's
like
kind of hard